One, two, three, funky.
Welcome to the Funk Basement. Stelvio and Coach coming to you with the funk. All right, we're talking about football today.
Yay.
The topic is head injuries and the future of football in America.
Yeah.
So both me and Coach have coached football in the past, and I believe he's currently coaching. He's coaching high school football.
Yes,
but
sir.
One of the main things that we talk about all the time is the future of youth football and how it's going to affect them in the future. And what's been shown in the NFL and what they're focusing on a lot lately is injuries and how dangerous the sports are, how dangerous the sport is. And what happens is they've changed all type of rules to protect the players. But I always have a problem with it because it seems to me it's just changing the whole scope of football. And I know Coach for a fact has an opinion about that. And one thing that I've approached him about, I'm like, because of the changes in football, because of the dangers in football, I'm not sure I'd want, if I had a son, I'm not sure if I'd want him to play. And he has a completely different perspective of that. So what do you think about that, Coach?
Well, yeah, I mean, you make a valid point, and you're right. You and I, we have this conversation a lot, and I am currently coaching actively in high school, and I have this conversation with parents all the time. Football they call it a contact sport. Football is actually a collision sport. The sport is designed for violent collisions to occur. And so when you think about when you and I were young, when we played, it was a lot of different games, right? The science around head injuries was not as prevalent and out there. And so I remember, playing youth ball, playing high school ball, and even in my college years where I've had head injuries or I've had hits to the head where, the bells are ringing or you're seeing stars, right? These are the things that were said. And they just say, shake it off, right? You go to the sideline and you get some water and then you get back in. I remember vividly in college, I made a tackle one time in practice as a safety, came down and I lowered my head and made a big hit. Everybody went crazy. I blew up the receiver. He fumbled the ball. Everybody's all excited. I got to the sideline. I couldn't see. And I literally could not really see, and stuff. And my head was hurting and my neck was hurting, and stuff. And, I eventually got over it and went back. Now I understand that I had a concussion. I had a mild concussion from that time. So it's definitely a game that has been violent. And we've seen these injuries, especially in the NFL, where you've seen, CTE, something that's come out where older players have been diagnosed with it. They died from it. The Junior Seau, when he committed suicide, that was a very big issue because when they did the autopsy, they were able to prove that he did have CTE, damage and stuff. So, of course, parents are like, I don't want my kid to play, right? I love the game of football, okay? From youth to pro, I love the game of football. And I really believe that football is a very important sport for young men to play because it teaches so many elements that men have to deal with as they grow up, and, when you get to this point, especially with kids, between that age of 9 and 14, that's a very important time in a young person's life where they're learning, discipline, they're learning teamwork, they're learning self-control. And these are all elements that football puts in place. But the question is, how do you get by that with the fact that, head injury, my kid gets hurt, and this could be something that could hinder him for the rest of his life. So what I tell parents and what I tell you, and we've talked about this, the game has changed. And, you get old cats like you and I, and they're like, oh, the game is not, it's not as physical as it used to be, or, you can't hit nobody no more. No, you can't. You can't do these things anymore. Even coaching, I can't use the same terms that was used when I coached. So, for example, You know, when I used to make a big hit, when I played, oh, you blew the dude up. Oh, you got to blow him up, blast him. We don't use those phrases anymore. We don't use those phrases, blow up, blast, those type of things, because those are things that really focus on the violence of the sport, right? You know, when it comes to tackling, there are drills that we drill in kids to remove the head from tackling, where you're using shoulder and chest to tackle. You're not using your head to make tackles and stuff.
So let me ask you something. Let me ask you
Mhm.
something, and I want to go back to your earlier comments about when players had violent collisions and they saw stars. Why do you think that coaches at the time, back in the day, weren't more aware of how injured a player could be? Um, that kind of stumped me as I got older and I thought about it. How they would say "shake it off," like you mentioned earlier. They would say "shake it off" or "get back in there. You're doing all right." They give you a test, 1, 2, 3, and then they send you back out there. They don't sit you down and look at you and see whether or not you can, that you can adhere to commands and stuff like that. They just seemed at the time that they weren't really aware of how hurt you could be. And I'm sure on many occasions we had concussions. Why do you think coaches were affected by it, or weren't really aware about that stuff?
Well, it's just knowledge. You know, it's just knowledge and knowing kind of what happens when you have these collisions. Coaches didn't have that knowledge back then. And then you have to understand also, and you know this, that football is a very masculine sport, right? So it's a sport where if you get injured and you go back in and play, that's looked upon favorably, right? You know, you jam your finger, you know, you twist your ankle. I'm coach, I'm good, right? You never want to show weakness. You know, it's kind of like a gladiator sport where you never want to show weakness. And, you know, and those players and teams are actually given the accolades of being these great franchises. Think about the Raiders from the 60s, 70s, and the early 80s, right? Those Raiders were hard-nosed, you know, blood dripping down their arm. You know, I mean, they're put in mythical range because of how rough and rugged they were. But then as you get more knowledge and you get a better understanding, you realize that's not really how the game should be played, right? A player walking around with blood dripping down their arm is not what we really want as coaches or even as fans. And so I think that's just the difference. Back then, coaches didn't have that knowledge, and the game was just a really different game the way it was viewed than how it is now.
But as a youth and even, you know, being an adult, whether you're hurt or not, you always pretend like you're not, because number one, you want to play, right? And if you look like you're hurt or you can't perform, you won't be playing. But coaches should know, you know, right off the top that, hey, that was a violent collision. We need to check them out. But that never occurred while we were playing youth football. And nowadays, of course, that's changing, of course. But that doesn't change how violent the actual sport is. And you kind of mentioned that, hey, parents approach you all the time asking, you know, why should my son play football? Why should I allow him to play football when it's so dangerous? Despite, you know, the changes in form tackling, despite how they have people on field, they have people that check you out, you know, during the game. It still doesn't change that it's really violent, and your son could be hurt. Your son could be hurt permanently, or could show in the future that you may have head injuries, or that's really tough for a parent to take. And I am curious about what you actually tell parents to convince them to do so, because I know you are pro youth football.
So, I mean, the first thing I do is we have to get rid of the fear, right? And I try to get parents to understand that injuries happen in every sport that a child plays. Okay, every sport. Like I'll ask you.
But
do you
football
know,
is different.
Well, let me ask you a
Football is
question.
different than most sports.
Let me ask you a question though.
Okay.
Do you know the sport that actually has the most head concussions? Do you know what sport that is?
I just take a wild guess. Maybe hockey.
No, it's women's soccer.
Okay.
Women's soccer has more head concussions than football. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize that that is actually where concussions are more prevalent in women's soccer, right? So what I tell parents is injuries happen. A kid can break his ankle playing basketball. Kids can tear their ACLs playing soccer. Okay, a kid can break their arm playing baseball. These type of things happen. So you can't have a fear of injury, because if you have a fear of injury, your kid won't do anything. You won't let your kid, ride their bike. My brother played football all his life. He didn't have a major football injury until he was in college. He didn't have any injuries in high school. The major injury he had was riding a bike where he broke his leg. I mean, that was the major injury he had when he was a kid. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get rid of the fear of injury. So now we got to look at, okay, let's look at the game of football. Here's what I tell parents. The game of football is safer now than it's ever been, okay? And here's a couple reasons. First, the equipment that the players wear is of the highest level than it's ever been. From helmet to shoulder pads to additional things for arms and hands and the cleats on their feet. So they are protected from head to toe. Second is the rules have changed so drastically at the high school level that anything that is deemed to be a tackle or hit that will cause injury, that kid is kicked out the game. So for example, when I coach the defense, when we get a kid that gets an interception, right? Boom, the kid gets a pick six and he's heading to the end zone. Okay, we tell kids don't block. We tell them run in front of the player that has the ball, leading him to the end zone. Do not go backwards and block. Do not block anybody behind you. Reason being is when kids, we call it, you peel back and you make a peel back block. That's a penalty. That's a 15-yard penalty, and so it's a unsportsmanlike conduct foul. That kid can get kicked out the game because of that. So that has been totally changed, right? There are no more, a helmet to helmet hit. So you come in and you leave with your helmet and you hit the kid with your helmet. That's a penalty. Mm-hmm.
But Coach, it is such a high collision sport, and the sport is so fast. It's hard to be able to break down and tackle properly.
I mean, that's a lie. That's a lie.
It's not a lie.
It is a lie.
That's the truth.
Again, okay,
that's the truth.
Okay, listen.
It's very hard to break down.
No,
it's hard to break down.
Listen to me.
And have any type of control over how you're going to hit another player.
Listen, nine times out of 10, you can control how you come in and make a tackle. Okay, if you choose not to use your helmet, if you come in using arms and shoulders, 9 times out of 10, you can make a good tackle. Now, there's always that one time where the runner changes angle, and now you were going to hit him at the chest level. He changed angle, and you end up hitting at the head level. But that's not common
all the time.
No, that's the myth.
That's not a myth.
Stelvio,
it happens all the time.
At what level? What level does it happen all the time?
Every level.
What? So
every level. If you're telling me down to hit somebody in the chest, and the runner tries to protect themselves, they bend down, there's nothing you can do about that.
So listen to me.
There's nothing you can do about that.
So listen, there was research done by University of Rutgers that within a 7-game season, out of 20 practices, they had no concussions reported. Okay, so if it happens, that
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Hold on. That's at a university level. So if they didn't report any concussions within a 7-game, 20 practice season, that means it doesn't happen all the time. See, again, here's what happens all the time. When we as fans see it at the pro level, we think that happens all the time. Okay, there are millions of kids that play football in this country. All right, it doesn't happen all the time where a kid gets hurt. And what I'm telling you is at the high school level and at the youth level, we have taken out those type of plays. You can't play like that anymore. The way you and I played when we were young, you can't play like that anymore. When I played, when I was in high school, you know what my nickname was? My nickname was Kamikaze, okay? Because I would come in and I would basically give up my body to stop you, right? So they called me Kamikaze because I had no concern for my own body when it came to making tackles, all right? The way I played when I was in high school 30 years ago, I couldn't play like that now because the rules have changed so much, or I would be eliminated from games because they would kick me out for personal fouls. So again, what I'm telling you is that the way that at the high school level, tackling is coached, okay, and kids aren't taught to even use their heads anymore. That's not even part of it. You tackle shoulders, arms, you tackle chest. You're taught to take out the legs. So I coach defensive backs. I teach kids, you take out the legs, you tackle legs. So the whole violent head tackle, that's not a common thing. I'm telling you, Stelvio, it's not a common occurrence.
And you may be right, because they have really focused on keeping the head out of those collisions. But what type of injuries are you seeing more of now?
Well, you're seeing ankle injuries, you're seeing knee injuries.
A lot of ankles, a lot of knees.
But those aren't new. But those aren't new. Like, see, again, here's what I tell parents.
I didn't say it was new, but I'm saying you're getting more of those injuries now.
But that happens. That happens in basketball.
You're blowing people's knees out.
I see guys.
You coming straight at knees. That's just crazy.
Well,
you're blowing a person's knees out?
But that doesn't happen on a regular basis. In basketball, you blow out your Achilles. You blow out your ACL. Again, injuries happen. You cannot, here's what I tell parents. You cannot be afraid of injury. If you're afraid of injury, your child should not participate in sports because injuries happen.
Sports are different.
No.
You have different sports.
Well, of course, if you
have different sports, so it's not, one sport can be less dangerous than the other.
But
I mean, you're right. You can be injured in all sports.
Okay.
But there's a better percentage, more of a percentage in football than other sports. Can we agree on that?
No, we can't agree on that. That's a misperception that has been put out there. Okay. You're telling me, okay, let's think about one of the greatest golfers of all time. Okay, Tiger Woods. How did he get hurt? Why is his game suffered so much? What injury has he dealt with that has really attacked his game?
His knees and his back.
Did Tiger ever play football?
Nope.
Did Tiger ever play basketball?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so then why is he having knee and back problems?
Well, it's because of his swing.
Okay.
He's a violent swinger.
Okay, so in a sport that is non-contact, in a sport that is basically an individual sport, Tiger Woods has the same injury he would have if he was a linebacker playing for the Denver Broncos. You hear what I'm saying? Injuries happen no matter what sport you play. That cannot be your reason for you not participating in a sport. Now, yes, football is a sport that has more collisions than any other sport. I'm not saying that. Yes, kids can get hurt. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But what I'm saying is
but you have more of a chance to get hurt in football than any other sport, except maybe hockey.
But I disagree with more of a chance, because when you look at the numbers with the amount of kids
Why do you say that?
Play, because when you look at the numbers with the amount of kids that play football,
especially the position that are in the trenches, they're hitting each other constantly. But there's a huge percentage that you may get hurt in those particular collisions because you're doing it all the time.
So here's what,
if you're constantly in a car wreck, most likely you're gonna get hurt.
So let me use my own personal coaching experience, right? Because I can't speak for everyone else. So I've been coaching football at the youth level, high school, and college for over 24 years. Okay, of my 24 years of coaching, where I have seen a catastrophic injury, a catastrophic injury, meaning an injury where a kid could not play football ever again. Okay, that type of injury. I've only seen that injury one time of my 24 years of coaching, where the injury was so severe, the child could never resume playing football. Okay, now I've seen ACL tears, I've seen ankle tears, I've seen ankle breaks and sprains, I've seen shoulder dislocations, I've seen broken arms. Okay, I've seen a lot of injuries in football. So yes, injuries happen, but I've also seen a lot of injuries in other sports. Okay, and so to make it seem like football is the only sport where a kid gets injured, that's ridiculous. I have a friend.
No one said that. That's not the only sport where a person gets injured. Now you're adding stuff in there, bruh.
No, but
nobody said that's the only sport where you get injured, but it is one of your more high percentage sports where you can get hurt.
Okay, so so then
especially as a youth football player, especially as a youngster.
So then I'm gonna.
And that's a whole nother conversation where we have peewees, we have midgets, we have higher level at the youth level. You have higher level teams.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna talk to you like you're a father of a child who is interested in playing sports and you're concerned about injury. So I'm gonna talk to you right now. Like, this is what I would say. Okay. So the first thing I would say to you is injury your number one concern? Is that your number one concern?
Yes.
So I would say, if that's the case, then sir, your son should not play sports. Because I can't guarantee he won't get hurt in football, but I also can't guarantee he won't get hurt in basketball, he won't get hurt in baseball, he won't get hurt in tennis, he won't get hurt playing golf or hockey. So if injury is your number one concern, you do not want your child to get injured, I would say to you, he should not play sports. Okay?
That would be very bad advice.
Well, why would it be? I'm simply.
That'd be very bad. How would you give me advice that my child shouldn't be playing sports?
Because you just told me your number one concern is injury. You can't play sports, and that be your number one
concern with football is injury. I didn't say anything about basketball, baseball.
Okay, so then let me ask you this.
I didn't say anything about track. I didn't say anything about ping pong. I didn't say none of that. We're just talking about football. How are you going to advise a parent not to allow their child to play sports because I'm concerned about injury? What parent would not be concerned about injury?
Well, let me ask you. So then are you saying you don't want your son to get injured? Or you're concerned of what type of injuries he can get playing the sport? What's your concern in reference to injury?
My concern is that sport is so dangerous because of the speed, the violent hitting, the more often hitting that a lot of sports don't have. I'm concerned about that because I'm seeing a lot more injuries nowadays.
Okay, and where are you seeing these injuries?
And I agree with you. Back when we were playing, we didn't see that many injuries.
No, well, hold on. But here's my question. Where are you seeing these injuries? Do you have personal relationships with people who have been injured? Where are you seeing these injuries?
I see injuries when I watch football, when I played football. I've seen other people play football. I see a lot of injuries.
But here's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But here's what I'm saying. All right. Again, I'm not denying the fact that injuries occur. Okay. The reason why when you and I played, we didn't hear about these injuries is because it wasn't something that was talked about. It wasn't on the news. There wasn't a 24-hour sports news cycle where you could get a ticker at the bottom of your TV telling you that so-and-so just tore his ACL or that so-and-so has a head injury, right? We are inundated with this information all the time, right? We didn't get that when we were young, okay? So because you see it on TV, it gives you the perception that this happens all the time. And I'm telling you, it doesn't. As someone who has coached this game for over 20 years, I'm telling you, it doesn't happen all the time, okay? So the reason why, as a parent, I want you to change your thinking where you're not just concerned with injury is because the understanding is injury can happen, okay? I have a 19-year-old daughter, okay? She's away in school. She goes to school in another state, okay? She has a car, all right? She drives that car. Now, I hear about car accidents all the time, right? I hear about people dying in car accidents all the time, okay? Do I not let her drive her car because I hear about these car accidents all the time? Because of my innate fear that my daughter will be in a car accident where she'll lose her life? No, I know that happens, but I do understand that it doesn't happen all the time. People don't die at huge numbers in car accidents. These things occur, these things take place, but it's not something that happens all the time. So all I can do is make sure that my daughter is aware on the safeties of driving a car and the things she needs to do. So what I would tell you is the game is safer now than it's ever been. It's never been as safe as it is now. What you don't want to look at the NFL. That's
how is it safe? How is it safer now? Tell me, how is it safer now? How does it prevent any injuries?
So first, it does. Okay, so see, you got to change your. It doesn't prevent injury. It doesn't prevent any injury. Okay, kids still.
So what are you saying?
Kids still get hurt playing football. What I'm saying is, it's safer where it prevents or it lessens the opportunity or chance for these big head injuries that we know about. So here's how
you're talking about head injuries. You're not talking about anything else. You're just talking about head injury. It lessens the opportunity to get a head injury, but it doesn't the opportunity to get a broken knee, a broken ankle, a broken arm or elbow.
Well, no,
but it doesn't lessen the opportunity to get ACL, MCL injuries. It doesn't lessen that. It just keeps me from getting head injuries. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is the game is not as violent as it was. So where you may get these injuries from violent plays that are now deemed as against the rules, that doesn't happen as often. But no, I'm not going to tell you that there's not a chance you may tear your ACL. I believe Kevin Durant tore his Achilles with nobody touching him on a basketball court. Okay, and he's in the best shape of any athlete we would ever think, right? Okay, DeMarcus Cousins first tore his Achilles without anybody touching him, then tore his quad with nobody touching him. Playing basketball, okay? Injuries happen. And what I try to get parents to understand is that we cannot be afraid of injury. But the rules have changed where the chance of your son having a catastrophic injury, an injury that would end their ability to physically to do things, is less because of the rules that are in place and because of the advancement of the equipment technology that is currently in the game of football.
I believe you have a point when it comes to head injuries, but the actual thing that really is tough on football players is getting upper and lower extremity injuries. Head injuries, they still happen. You know, head injuries still happen, but they have designed the rules to protect your head a lot more. But in the process of protecting your head, what are you going to do about your knees? I mean, people are going straight for your knees now. I mean, when people are being taught to go in your midsection area, right? Mm-hmm. Chest, mid-stomach area, right? That's what you're aiming for, right?
Correct.
But a lot of the times, those angles change during those fast-paced, high collisions, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That angle changes, and often you're either hitting the head because of the angle change, or you're going really, really low because you're aiming at the legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's causing more injuries as opposed to lessening the injuries that occur in football. What do you think?
Again, I don't mean to be the guy that disagrees with everything you say, but I disagree with everything you're saying because I don't believe
how can you? You just told me earlier that you're going at the knees. You're saying go at the knees. You're coaching, go at the knees because you don't want to hit the head.
No. Listen.
So if you're going at the knees all the time, what injuries do you expect?
Listen, you're right.
Catastrophic knee injuries.
But those injuries don't happen all the time. Here's what I have to try to get people to stop using, right? These words all the time. Everybody. These injuries don't happen all the time. Are you telling me that every football game you watched last year, every game you watched, there was a major knee injury that occurred in that game?
No, I'm not saying that.
So that means it doesn't. That means it doesn't happen. That means it doesn't happen all the time. That means it doesn't happen all the time.
But you have more of an opportunity for that to happen, right? Because you're always going at your knees. Always going at your knees.
Stelvio, listen, of course you do. Of course you have more opportunity for that to happen all the time. But I also can, again, I'll you know what I've seen? I've seen more Achilles tears in the NBA than I've ever seen. Why? Why have we seen more of that? I've seen more players tear their Achilles in the current NBA than I've seen in all my years
You
of
know
watching
why?
basketball.
Because you're bad luck. Because of you, people get Achilles injuries.
Don't get all personal with me. Don't get all personal with me. Okay, you tore your Achilles because your Achilles wasn't ready to play no basketball.
Because you was next to me. That's why I tore my Achilles.
But
nah, it's not. Go ahead.
Again, what I'm saying is, yes. If you change the point of attack, if the point of attack is no longer shoulder and head, if the point of attack is now chest and waist, yes, when the angles change, you're going to end up hitting legs. I mean, that happens. And yes, guys do get hurt, but most ACL and MCL injuries, most of them come from non-impact, meaning it was a cut, a change of direction where that was torn. It's not normally the tackle that tore the ACL. That's usually what you see. Again, I'm going to go off of my 20 years of coaching. Whenever I've seen a person tear the ACL or their MCL, it was usually a non-contact injury. They were making a cut. My nephew tore his ACL twice in high school. He tore it going into his freshman year. He tore it in his junior year. Both of those injuries occurred on non-contact plays. He was simply changing directions. The first one, he was playing basketball. He wasn't even playing football. He tore it playing basketball. The second one, he tore it playing football, and he was changing direction. He made a cut to try to go make a tackle. He tore it. So again, if I'm talking to you like a parent, what I try to get parents to do is you have to get rid of the fear. You cannot be afraid. Okay, let's look at all the positives that come from playing football. Okay, I'm not saying that the sport is not a sport that is has dangers to it. Yes, it does. But let's look at all the positives that you get out of playing the sport of football. And I'm not talking about pro. Let's get that out of there. I'm not even talking about college. I'm talking about high school. The positives that young people get from playing high school football.
Okay.
You frozen? You frozen? You don't want to say nothing?
No. I mean, what positive do you have other than socialization? You get a chance to meet different people. You get a chance to learn how to play a contact sport. You learn how the different coaching styles. Yeah, I understand. There are a bunch of positives for playing sports in general, not just NFL football, but sports in general. I mean, I love sports. I mean, I'm not breaking down sports for being dangerous. I mean, to be honest with you, you got to be a special type of person to play football. Do you agree?
Yes, you do, but again, I'm not gonna make it sound like you got to be, like you're a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL. To me, it's not that complicated. Here's what you get out of playing football, and here's why I believe every young man, if they have the opportunity, should play high school football. You're right. You get the socialization, right? You are part of a group of young guys that are not all like you. They're different. They come from different backgrounds, different family structures, social, economic, and you're working together for one goal, right? So it's the one sport where all 11, 22, 30, 40, how many kids are on this team all have to come together to work towards one common goal. Basketball, you have maybe at the max 12, maybe 13 kids on the basketball team. Baseball, you may have, maybe 20 kids on the baseball team. But football, it's inclusive. With a football team, you can have as many kids as uniforms you can buy. I've seen some high school teams that have 100 kids on the team. Now, it doesn't mean all 100 play, but you can have 100 kids on the team. If you can afford 100 uniforms, you can have 100 kids on the team. So it really creates this type of working with each other. The second thing it does is it forces you to understand sacrifice and doing things that you don't want to do in order to achieve the things that you want. Okay? When a kid has to go to practice in the summer and it's hot, no matter what state they're in, it's 100 degrees, 110 degrees, and they're at practice and they're working hard and they're sweating. Nobody wants to do that. I didn't want to do it when I played. Nobody wants to do that. But you're sacrificing hanging out with your friends, you're sacrificing being at home playing video games, because the end game is you want to try to have success in the season. And that is a key thing for young men to learn, especially young African-American boys, to understand that sometimes you have to sacrifice, the things you want to do now in order to achieve the things you want in the future, right? And to me, that's a great skill that I believe young men get out of playing football. The other thing is you understand how to be part of a team, right? I got to be part of a team. I have to do the things that I need to do. I need to do my job in order to help us reach our goal. Okay. And so these are things that, again, I'm going to talk about young Black boys because that's where I'm really, really keen looking at. I think a lot of young Black boys miss these things. And that's why I believe football is such a great tool to teach them these things. Understanding, following authority. A coach is an authority figure. And when you have a coach that is leading, understand how to follow that authority, right? How to take ownership, how to come back when you make mistakes, right? How many times did you play in football? I know it happened to me where I made mistakes. I failed, I didn't succeed, and I was able to come back from that. These are great elements that young men need to have as they enter adulthood. So for me, there's so many positives on why you play the game of football that, yes, injury is definitely a major element. And it's something that you should definitely talk about and think about, but it can't be the fear, because I know that my work ethic that I have as a 49-year-old man, outside of what my father and my mother taught me, my work ethic comes directly from my years of playing football. That's the reason why I grind like I do, because of my years playing football.
Well, you are exactly right. Those are all positives for playing football, for playing sports in general. You can give that speech to for any sport. I mean, you learn all those skills, you learn all that stuff from being an athlete. But definitely injury is a major concern. Have you ever had that? I'm curious. Have you ever had that talk with a parent who said, "Hey, I want I'm considering my son playing football, but I'm concerned about how violent it is." Has anybody ever approached you regarding
Yeah.
that?
Well,
And
yeah.
and give me the exact advice that you told them, and did it convince them to let their child play?
So yeah, I've had that conversation more than once. Coach at the high school level, I get parents all the time who have eighth graders coming into high school. They may have a kid that's a ninth or 10th grader that maybe I've seen, and I'm like, hey, how come you're not playing football? And they're like, well, my mom or my dad won't let me play. And I've had that conversation, and what I tell them is just the conversation we've had for the last couple of minutes. Injuries occur. They occur in every sport. They occur in every sport. I mean, you can't get away with injury. The catastrophic injury that we see the ESPN 30 for 30 on, those don't happen common. That's not a common thing. Okay. But injuries happen. They happen in all sports. And, it's, of course, I don't want, my child to have some major injury. I don't want your child to have a major injury, but those happen. But football is a sport that will allow all of the things that this young person can do athletically to shine. And it will allow them to reap a lot of the benefits that come from participation in that sport. And I've had parents that say, you know what, coach, I appreciate it, but we don't want to take the risk. Or I've had parents say, you know what, coach, I do appreciate it, we're gonna give it a try. I had a one young gentleman that I was coaching a couple years back. This kid was a nice wide receiver. He's about 6'3", like 195 pounds, fast, could catch. And I mean, he was going into his junior year and he was really progressing. I mean, no, I'm sorry, he was a freshman. He was really progressing as he's going to his sophomore year. Okay. Well, he broke a finger. He broke a finger. It was a play, caught the ball, got tackled, ended up breaking his finger. He also played basketball. So by the break of the finger, the parents shut down football, right? He's not playing football, right? Because their thoughts are, he's going to play basketball, he's going to go to college. And they didn't say it, but I could tell they're looking at him going pro, right? I told them when we had the conversation, when they were telling me he wasn't going to play anymore, I said, listen, I understand, but breaking a finger can happen in any sport. That's not a football specific injury. That can happen in any sport. So what I told them is, let's look at what this young man brings to the table. As a 6'3", 195 wide receiver, his future in football is bright. It's extremely bright. As a 6'3", 195 basketball player, he's average. He's average. I mean, that's average. I mean, that's just, there's nothing special about that in basketball, right? He better be able to do a lot more as far as just being a 6'3", 195 guard, right? He better be able to shoot like Steph Curry or jump out the gym, or he better do something. But as a 6'3" wide receiver, I mean, the future was bright for him. Well, parents, they didn't want to, they didn't want to play football. They were done with football. Okay. He plays basketball. Well, he breaks his foot in basketball. His, sophomore year breaks his foot. Okay. Comes back from that injury. Junior year has some nicks and bruises. Senior year plays well. He was a really good basketball player at the high school level, really good. He's going to a junior college to play ball. Now, not that there's anything wrong with going to junior college, but I knew as a freshman at 6'3", 195, this kid could definitely hit the heights of maybe playing at a higher level football-wise. I knew at 6'3", 195 as a basketball player, unless he shined in some of these realms that you got to shine in, he was going to struggle, right? So I say all that to say this. They stopped him from playing football because of an injury that they tried to equate to being a football injury, when breaking your finger could happen in any sport. That's why, as I said earlier, injury cannot be the reason why you don't play football. Just tell me you don't like football. Just say, coach, I don't like football. Okay, I can live with that. But don't tell me don't play football because of injury, because injuries happen in every sport.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, injuries happen in every sport. But I think I don't think we're talking on the level of finger injuries and stuff like that. I think we're talking about more major injuries like head injuries, back injuries, knee injuries that could have long-term effects in the future. In football, there's just more of a possibility of you getting head injury. There's more of a possibility of you getting back injuries and knee injuries, despite any of the changes that have occurred so far. It's just a really dangerous sport. It's a tough sport. I don't know about the actual facts on women's soccer players having more head injuries, but there's a reason why football players have helmets. There's a reason why they wear shoulder pads. There's a reason why they wear knee pads. Although, as we've seen already in NFL football, they don't even wear knee pads anymore. They don't even wear thigh pads anymore. I don't understand that. One of the great running backs of all time, who's still playing and played in Miami and had 2 or 3 catastrophic knee injuries. Do you know who I'm talking about at this point?
No. Who are you talking about? Played in Miami?
Yeah, he played for Miami. And he was a great, there's a bunch of running backs that came from Miami, but a bunch of them had catastrophic knee injuries, like Willis McGahee, bad catastrophic injury.
Oh, yeah.
The person I'm talking about is Frank Gore.
Oh, okay.
He was an unbelievable player in college, but he had some really bad knee injuries. And I'm mentioning that because he doesn't even wear knee pads.
Well, knee pads don't
wear knee pads.
Well, knee pads don't stop. Knee pads don't stop knee injury. Knee pads stop you from scraping your knee. They don't stop. They don't stop a knee injury. So that's a misnomer.
I believe it definitely helps, but there's no way in the world I'd be going out there with no pads on my knees. I would not do that. But he's done. There's a lot of players, especially wide receivers. They don't wear knee pads. They don't wear a lot of pads. They don't wear hip pads and stuff like that. I mean, that's gotten out of control, and they are focusing on the safety of playing football, but there's a lot of players not even wearing pads.
But again, let me stop you for a second. Again, you got to understand, we're talking about two different levels. At the professional level, these are multimillionaires, right? So they can basically do whatever they want to do. They're multimillionaires. Okay, we got to go down to the high school level. At the high school level, you have to wear knee pads. That's part of the rule. They kick you out the game if they see you don't have knee pads. Matter of fact, your knee pads have to cover your knee. You got to pull your pant down so it actually covers your knee, right?
That is true.
So again, this is where parents get kind of lost. To me, you get lost in the weeds. You cannot equate everything to the professional level. Those are multimillionaires. We got to look at the high school level. The rules is such at the high school level where if a kid doesn't do, he doesn't know. I mean, here's what happens. Before the game, when the kids are on the field and they're warming up, each team is warming up, the official walks and looks at every kid. So there are 5 officials, right? 2 officials go to one side, 2 officials go to the other side. They walk and look at every kid's uniform, okay? If that kid is missing something, they tell you, hey, coach, he needs knee pads. Hey, coach, okay, you know the visors you see like in the pros, they wear those dark visors.
Right.
In high school, it has to be clear. They have to be able to see the kid's eyes, right?
Yeah, of course.
If the visor's too dark, they say you got to take that off, right? So what I'm saying is a lot of parents base their thought process on what they see at the multi-million-dollar level instead of go to a high school game. That's why I tell parents, I say, when have you been to a high school game? I say, have you gone to a high school game? No, I've never been to a high school game. Well, then you can't. We're going to have a hard conversation about high school football, and you've never been to a high school game to see how the game is actually played. I wanted to tell you, I was while you were talking, I was just kind of scrolling through my phone. The sport that has the most ACL injuries, okay, is women's soccer. Women's soccer has the most ACL injuries. So again, I'm just throwing this at you. And again, I know you love football. I know you're a fan of the sport. I know you're a fan of young people getting involved in it. But I want people that are watching this to understand that we cannot get lost in the weeds. And now we put football into this realm where it's so dangerous. We don't ever want our kids participating in it. It's no more dangerous as far as those injuries that we talk about than a lot of other sports you play. It's just choosing what sport do I want my kid to play in. If your kid tore his ACL in basketball, is that better than tearing your ACL playing football? It's a torn ACL, right? I mean, it's a torn ACL, right? If he tears,
I mean, you can tear your ACL in any sport.
Exactly.
You can tear your ACL stepping off a curb.
Exactly. So if he tore his shoulder ligaments from baseball pitching, or if he tears it from making a tackle playing football, which one's worse? But see, there's no real difference. Here's what society has done. Society has made that football injury, they made that worse than the baseball injury. They made it worse than the baseball injury. And that's the problem I have with it. And I'm about to hit you with some nuggets right here. Because I'm in a zone right now. I'm about to hit you some nuggets. Get ready. Here I come. I'm going to tell you why they've done that. I'm going to tell you why society has made it where football is all of a sudden such a violent sport that your kids shouldn't play. Are you ready? You ready for it?
Ready.
Because more black men are playing football and more black men are having an opportunity to get out of their situations, go to college, get their college paid for, using football as that tool. So if you use fear of injury to keep parents from letting their kids play, the sport begins to lose popularity and begins to lose the fuel that has made it a billion-dollar industry. That's why all of a sudden it's projected as though football is such a violent sport. That's why it's projected, because what do you see on Saturday when you turn to ESPN? I see a lot of young black men running around the football field. That's what I see. What do you see on Sunday mornings when you turn on your TV? I see a lot of black men running around the football field. Okay, but if you paint the picture that football is such a violent sport, your kids shouldn't play it, all of a sudden they don't play that sport no more. So I just throw it out there. I'm just throwing it out there right now. I'm sorry. I'm just throwing it out there to you because that's what I'm feeling.
Is that what you wanted to throw out there, angry coach?
Yes, it's been thrown out there. It's been thrown out there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That could be part of it. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why you're starting to see less black youth playing all these sports, not just football though.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different conversation.
That is. I'm sorry. I was in the zone. I just threw it out there. I'm sorry. I just threw it out there. But that's another topic. We'll do that topic next week. That's another topic.
I know exactly what topics you're talking about, but that's a whole different conversation. All right. Well, I agree that that football shouldn't be the main focus. I agree that you can have injuries in all different types of sports, but I do have a concern about youth football and the injuries that could happen to my child if I allow that to happen. I still feel that they're more of a possibility for them to have these catastrophic injuries because they're trying to teach these kids not to use their head. They're trying to teach them to tackle a certain way, but I still have a major concern about that. But I do not want to discourage parents from not allowing their kids to play football. And that's it for the Funk Basement. Stelvio, Coach, we'll bring it back to you live. Peace.
Peace, people.